So we had a brief chat about a variety of things. He was asking about the women comrades in Armagh, asked him about the lads down the wing, and etc., and how I was, and just generally how things were going with the contact we outside. And I don't think I was there 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes tops, just the conversation. And the last thing that he said to me when I got ready to go, he just says, "I'm dying, Cara, I'm dying." And that's the last I spoke to him. And I just made my way back to the block after that.
Sackville Street, the curfew drove the restless out of sight. The black and tans marched up and down, the moon shone cold and bright.
In terms of the support that we had from outside, particularly when the hunger strike started, you look at from the very inceptions of the Relatives Action Committees in 1976, the whole way through the development of the H-Block Armagh committees, and the writing campaigns that went out nationally and internationally. There was a huge swell of support all around the world, particularly in America, Canada, France, all over Europe, further afield, India, places like that, Australia. There was a worldwide focus on the hunger strikes, and particularly when Bobby Sands got elected, there were measures of support coming in, and people asking Maggie Thatcher now in an international capacity to, you can't let one of your own British elected MPs to die on hunger strike. But the Brits just stood firm against all avenues of support. I know there were moments of silence around the time of his death in a variety of parliaments and around the world, and people had paid tribute to him. People had urged the Brits to introduce measures that would bring an end to this situation. But Maggie Thatcher and the Brits had a hard-nosed approach to the whole thing. We were even aware at the time, particularly in America, with the level of support and the demonstrations on British consuls and embassies, etc., around America, that we were aware of support that the Foreign Office, Brit Foreign Office had a slightly different view on how to bring things to a closure. And there were items of information suggesting that the Foreign Office were urging the Home Office, or urging the Brits to deal with this, because it's causing, in an international capacity, far more difficulty than it warrants in terms of the measure of the size of it being within a British context at home here in Ireland, that measures should be taken to end that, because it's causing foreign affairs people a lot more difficulty than they felt was worth bringing a resolution. But Thatcher was determined to deliver a death blow to the IRA and to the Republican struggle, and obviously it backfired.
They said he was a rebel then, he's a hero now.
Well, we went through a very, very hard year, and as you say, we lost 10 very, very courageous people on hunger strike. And one thing needs to be said, and that's about families. Parents, partners, children, relatives, brothers, sisters. The heartache and the amount of pressure on them far exceeded anything outside of a hunger striker's pressure himself. Far exceeded anything that we experienced. People would say to me, how did you manage to get through that period? And yes, the walls did close in on you. Yes, you felt the pressure. Yes, you felt, I can't do this or whatever. But the moment that you witness or you hear of, Bobby Sands' wee lad, Jared, behind the coffin, Joe McDonald's wee lad, behind the coffin or hanging over the coffin, Mickey Devine's kids, the parents, Rosaline Sands at the back of a prison van, or back of a minibus, talking, my son is dying on hunger strike. The minute you look at that, you realise that the pressure that you're under is not in the same league as the pressure that they're under. So you step back a bit and say, stop feeling sorry for yourself. That is what real pressure is. So get up and do better than you did yesterday, and do better tomorrow than you're doing today, and do everything in your power to assist. So in that sense there, you can work your way through that. But what happened was that towards the end of the hunger strike, one of the parents intervened to seek medical attention when her son went into a coma. As far as I think the first one may have been Paddy Quinn. Lawrence McComb's mother also intervened. Now, what happened there was, this could have happened at any time, which meant that once you lapsed into a coma, your next of kin has rights of say in terms of medical intervention. So when a parent or a family member asked for medical intervention, that took the power or the control of your hunger strike totally out of your hands individually and outside of everybody's hands. And that meant that medical intervention brought them from the edge of the cliff of death back into life. And when that happened on a number of occasions, it rendered hunger strike as a tactic in order to maximise the pressure on the Brits. It rendered it null and void, because the Brits could just simply sit back and allow us to continue. Maybe another hunger striker would die down the lane. So when we became aware that other families were considering this, we asked our people outside to do a meeting with them. They did a meeting with all hunger strikers' families, quite a number of hunger strikers still on. Some had only come on as replacements a week or two. Others, like Pat Sheehan, were 53 days on hunger strike. Word came back into me that all hunger strikers' families, with only one exception, say they will intervene when the hunger striker goes into a coma. So I don't know which family had said no, we'll stand by what he wants. That practically all, with one exception, had said that. So I went to the prison hospital. I was up on a couple of occasions, discussed it with them and said, look, this is the crack, lads. Some of you are 50 odd days, some of you are 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. You need to make a consideration here. Bar one, all of your families are going to intervene. So you need to make a consideration, and you need to make a considered decision in relation to the impact and the effects of hunger strike. Are we going to punish ourselves? Are you going to punish yourselves the whole way down the lane only for medical intervention? You need to decide. So, it was very quickly decided that we should terminate the hunger strike. And I had asked on the Friday of Pat Sheehan, who was in a bad enough state. He had jaundice, had contracted jaundice. The doctor was advised him that things were very, very tricky. And I said to him, look, we're going to end this, but I want to make a statement tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And he agreed to say, there's no problem. He was in a bad enough state. So we got a statement out that day. I went to the prison hospital the next day and asked for all hunger strikers who were not in the hospital, some of them were still in their wing, to be brought to the prison hospital. Told the prison governor that would be a favourable outcome at the end of my visit. And we sat and we sent for the prison doctor and sent for the prison governor and informed him, the hunger strikers informed him that they were terminating the hunger strike, and that was at 3 o'clock on Saturday the 3rd of October.
The scars of history went flying into our faces in stark reality. Just up the road from Sackville Street, but things are different now.
Well, there's a number of factors that are a direct consequence of the hunger strikes. Particularly one with the election of Bobby Sands, which fed into the development of politics. And I suppose, in a sense, the amount of people rising up that we realised are in support of Republican politics, that we can get people elected, that I always say that the hunger strikes were a foundation stone for the development and the enhancement of Republican politics all along the road, with all the difficult decisions that were made in the aftermath of that. I feel that certainly the hunger strikes brought an international attention that it hadn't before existed. and the fact that it opened the doors for us for electoral participation, initially on an abstentionist basis. It also opened the door for analysis of the value of participation in political forums in terms of forwarding your entire objective of seeking reunification of the country, but also in terms of being involved at local level with your local communities to enhance and better the quality of life for people at local level. For me, that was crucial, and the hunger strike certainly provided that avenue coming out of that. Inside the prison, it certainly fired people to continue with the protest, and in the direct aftermath of that, the protest continued, even though we were given our own clothes. The protest continued for segregation, our own no work. We wanted to do our own education system, not our own education, but we wanted better education facilities. We wanted an end to the work. So people fought their way through that over the next couple of years. And also the escape in 1983 was a direct result of the consequences of coming out of the end of the hunger strike, with a raise in morale in terms of people dedicated and committed to continuing to pursue the 5 demands to make sure that we got along that road.
Along the Falls Road, soldiers push their glances left and right. Kids of the English working class, soldiers overnight.
We're 40 years on from the hunger strike. It's hard to believe, I actually feel that I've lasted this long, which is a miracle in a sense because of my life and what I was involved in from I was a teenager, and would never expected to get this far. But 40 years on from the hunger strikes, certainly, the legacy has been political development of a massive nature all over this country. That is, we are now supplied with young people coming in who don't have the same baggage as me. They're coming in, university graduates joining the party, the upsurge in support, particularly in the south, where we are now listed as, if not the top party, according to the polls, well up there. We could be in government here, after the next election. There's no question about that. It has sent a clear message from that period. 40 years on, people are still talking about it. People want to know about it. Documentaries have been made about it. And for anybody wanting to look at a portrayal of it in documentary form, there's a film made called Hunger, where Michael Fassbender plays the part of Bobby Sands. Huge film. Received all sorts of awards. It's definitely well worth watching. There are books to be read about it, 10 Men Dead. And again, Nor Meekly Serve My Time has just been re-released by Lawrence McKeown. It was compiled by him and the late Brian Campbell, who was a political prisoner and editor of Unpublic. Has just been compiled. It's the story of the hunger strike. So there are lots of stuff that people can get and can read and can look at. And people are anxious. And the amount of requests coming in, particularly this year, for people to learn more about it. And I find that particularly heartening among younger people. And I've done quite a number of these interviews, Zoom interviews, and there are lots of young people asking questions about the hunger strikes. How did it come about? Who were the people? What sort of people were they? Where were they from? What did they do prior to that? Prior to joining the IRA? What schools did they go to? And did they play Gaelic? Did they do whatever? And, there's a huge focus on the political development that we have, on the road we've come along since 1981. It's absolutely massive. Again, it's 40 years, but struggle is continuous. If the Brits come out tomorrow morning and say, that's it, but baggage packed, we're away, sort it out yourselves, there's still a struggle to establish a bona fide democratic republic here in this country. So it's always still a struggle ongoing. And that's why I encourage people to look at the example of the hunger strikes, the hunger strikers themselves, and the development of the political machinery that came along afterwards, and to be involved, to get involved, and to question, the strategies, to question the policies that we have. We're not infallible. We don't always get everything right. People should question and should move along with us, because we are what is it in terms of delivering in this country. We are the only people with the bedrock to be able to deliver. No one else can do that except us. So I would encourage people to be involved and take the example from the 1981 period and from the hunger strikers.
There's tea and cakes in Downing Street. There's whispers in the hall. Let's move the Curo di show. Now our backs are to the wall. There's panic down in Leinster House, where words are seldom scarce. Send someone to Glasnevin quick to remember Patrick Pearse. Once more his crucifixion.
Yeah, this is nice to have, and it's his life is in your hands, both hands, and it was a huge campaign in the Fermanagh South Tyrone by-election after Frank Maguire had died. And what you have here is just a small article about the blanket men. Use your vote to save the seat. And inside it also is a small column that was smuggled out by one of the blanket men. And, you know, coincidentally, this one is written on toilet paper, and the sheet of toilet paper. And in the middle of it, you can still see printed on the toilet paper as property of Her Majesty's government, which is ironic because it was on every sheet of toilet paper that was there. So that was it. But the whole campaign around that election was huge, and certainly galvanised support in terms of electoral politics, and demonstrated, quite frankly, that the British myth about the Republicans not having any support, 0.1% of support, was totally blown out of the water by Bobby Sands' election to Fermanagh South Tyrone. And in the aftermath of that, there are other people moving in to take that seat. And again, of course, other elections in the South, you know, where Kieran Doherty and Paddy Agnew got elected, and other hunger strikers were running in the Free State elections around that period as well. But a huge campaign. This is lovely to have, especially with that wee column in there. You know, just someone sending out word to somebody about, please support Bobby Sands in his election campaign. This is the diary. Bobby Sands decided that he would keep a diary during the course of his hunger strike. He started on day 1, but when it got to St. Patrick's Day, day 17, was the last entry in the diary. I think he was maybe feeling under pressure with too many other things. He was writing columns, taking visits, and writing articles, etc. So he kept this diary. Some of it is fascinating. This has just been re-released. This is a new edition, and it had actually been released shortly, I think, after his death. I think it was in June 1981 was the first issue. This has been just recently released. It's beautifully done. There are a few inserts that are photographs of all the hunger strikers, including, I think, Frank Stagg and Michael Gahan. And also on this occasion, as well as a foreword and an introduction, they have introduced footnotes on various pages, which help to put things in context, and also help to show the determination of people like Bobby Sands of what their focus was and how dedicated and committed they were. But this is certainly worth having, and it's definitely it's a lot larger than the originals, and it's well produced and well done, and it can be obtained online through Sinn Féin shop and through Sinn Féin outlets, or through the shop down in on Wishoke on the Falls Road there.
They said he was